in the process of doing this, and in particular in the process of doing this for customers, we've discovered a dark secret of our entire ecosystem. And this is valid whether or not you care about Lurk. I'm not selling you Lurk here. I'm selling you whether you care about not losing the nice things that you find on this slide. Proofs are awesome, right? Proofs are cheap to verify. The verification is negligible in computation time compared to either the actual computation or not to mention producing the proof. They're small. They're very nice, we even have all of those very fancy talks. There was one talk by Jens Groth, another one by the chief scientist at Aztec, which name escapes me at the moment, which recently rejoined the company, and all the jazz. Like they're really, really fantastic tools to reuse proofs and create a stream of proofs and link them together. That's fantastic. I have news for you, folks. You ready to cry? This is where we cry. This is where we all cry, right? As an ecosystem, who in this room does not work with blockchains at all? Oops, then we all cry, right? There's nobody that's safe, right? Because the moment you want to do anything on a blockchain, you cry. So here's the thing. The cost for verifying proofs today is what it is on Ethereum. And yes, I'm not the first one to notice this. You are going to tell me, yeah, sure, the price on Ethereum, price of gas on Ethereum. Everybody has agreed that the most, and we asked, the most they're ready to pay for the verification of a proof on Ethereum is 300,000 gas, which stands at a little bit over $5 these days, but they do not want to pay more. I literally have a customer in the room that I've tried to negotiate, like, could you pay a little, and they said no. Like, I'm not going to point him out, not to single him out, but like, the whole point is the ecosystem does not want to pay more than 300,000 gas for the verification of any proof. That's it. Which means that we're pretty much verifying gross 16 as far as Ethereum is concerned. I know that in L2s and coprocessors and other things, you can do other things, and that's great, and we should do those things. But what that means is proofs on Ethereum are gross 16 or maybe Plonk, if your Plonk verification is implemented correctly, at best. Other thing, the moment you had that fast verification latency, meaning on your laptop you could verify things very quickly, the moment you're sending your proof to a blockchain, now you're in trouble because your proof needs to be not only included in a block, but it needs to do other things we're going to talk about. And then the streamable side of things is really about how you are able to create a stream of proofs that are linked to each other. I'll detail more on the universality. So what that means is, as I mentioned, 300,000 is an industry standard, which means that everybody is quick because they care at least about Ethereum, even if they're using also other places for verification, will finish their proof with a gross 16 or Plonk, at best, verification step. That thing adds at least 2 to 5 minutes to your prover time, just because you're forced to care about that protocol from 2016, which was a great protocol in 2016. Don't get me wrong, it is the most implemented in our entire industry. Do we want to be handcuffed to it forever, though? The other thing is, this is not really about block inclusion. There's some blockchains, like this would have been about block inclusion in 2018, but there's some blockchains that do block inclusion pretty fast. We're now relatively late. Like, you can get in the block pretty darn fast these days. Aptos will let you in 200 milliseconds. 200 milliseconds is fine. But because those proofs, the unit of proof verification costs upwards of $5 to $10, depending on gas price, everybody is forcing you into an aggregation model. They're saying, we're going to redistribute the cost of those $10 to the customer, and so we're going to wait until we have 5, 50, 500 customers, until we can divide that $10 by 5, 50, 500, and then we pass on those costs. And that aggregation and waiting for the other proofs is what is actually costing you in terms of latency. And then you have size limits. And those size limits are even harder to break in terms of blockchain. They're harder to break because blockchains actually enforce those size limits. They actually care about the size limits in ways that they wouldn't, where they would let you choose your own pricing model if you were to talk about execution speed. What that means is that proofs, insofar as you're verifying them on chain, are execution inputs. Executional inputs on a blockchain are sacred. They need to be kept around forever because the dogma is that your blockchain is not safe because it has many validators, or at least not only because it has many validators and your Nakamoto coefficient is very high. It is because you have full nodes. Your full nodes re-execute the chain and they hold the validators accountable to the protocol, meaning the number of honest full nodes you need to detect that the validators all, in majority, colluded and decided to go AWOL and do their own thing, is one. You need just one full node that will raise the alarm and say, hey, we have double spend on that chain now, which means you need to replace your validators and relaunch the chain with a new set of validators. Which means the full node must re-execute, which means the full node must have access to all the transactions, which means you need to store the proofs forever, and you do not have a choice on how much do I pay for storage. The price is one size fits all. There's interesting new storage models on Sui and Aptos. I'm well aware. Those are about the state consumption. They're not about the transaction consumption. Transaction is billed at a fixed rate for the entire blockchain. You cannot choose your own adventure. So the size of your transactions need to look like a transaction. This is what I call the MMS problem, which probably dates me. Because a transaction looks like an SMS. A proof, if you get out of the gross 16 Planck side of things, looks like an MMS. And remember how telcos priced us when we started having MMSs? The other thing is, most proof use cases are actually not a one-off. They're very often a stream of related proofs. If you're doing a ZK game, you're doing the moves of your ZK battleship example. If you're doing a bridge, you are submitting a proof about the latest block of a blockchain for which you already submitted a proof for the prior block, right? And you are using, whether you want it or not, because that's the only thing that makes sense to a blockchain, you're using the blockchain to link those proofs together. Even if you're doing a recursive proof, you're doing a recursive proof of all the game moves, the 50 game moves since the beginning of the game to now, but you still must, for the blockchain to accept that this makes sense in the game that you're running in a smart contract with Bob, you still must link even those 50 moves to the 49 moves, including in the prior recursive proof for the prior game. Which means you're using that blockchain to make the link, and if you're using that blockchain to make the link, you actually wouldn't need recursion. Recursion is irrelevant for you, because you would be pointing at the prior state that the validators have accepted. Which means that ZK coprocessors solve part of the problem. They are really improving the state of things. ZK coprocessors are great, but they don't solve everything because they are not a blockchain. They can't do that link between the new proof and a prior state for you. And then there are exceptions to this rule. I've been saying the state of blockchains is poor when it comes to proof interaction. It is. But there are exceptions. There are some blockchains that have figured out what being a proof-centric blockchain looks like. They are not the only examples, but Aleo and Mina are really good at it. They understand proof verification. They don't build you through the nose for it. They know exactly how to link it to a prior state. They have figured out that sometimes the size of those things is a bit problematic. Okay, some of them do a bit of aggregation, fair, but really, blockchains do blocks, so they're really, really good. But what can you do with Aleo? You can speak to Aleo again, right? So if all of your proof activity lives on Aleo or Mina, you're cool. No problem. The rest of this talk doesn't concern you. It's a good time to tip your waitresses. But if you are interested in a little bit of a wider application of your proofs, then you might want to avoid this.